So I thought I would start by just introducing my practice and the kind of work that I make, and then later speak a little bit about the workshop and what I'm thinking with the proposed work. So I work with elements of sculpture, drawing, photography, and more recently video to create installations. Broadly speaking, I'm also interested in ideas of relations, so the way in which two or more things are connected or have influence on the other. So that might be the relationship between ourselves, our bodies, and something outside of us, like an object, a space, or an event, or another body. Or it might be the observation of interactions between two things not connected directly to ourselves. And connected to this, I'm also interested in ideas surrounding perceptual encounters, particularly linked to parted relations, thinking about how a whole thing is made up of constituent parts, each with their own varying relationships and potential to function together and or separately. So my existing work predominantly has explored the world of objects, and these are forms that I tend to create myself. And I try and capture the essence of these objects by gathering information about them through various mediums, often starting with photographs and drawings. And then this information is translated and retranslated through new works, often shifting between 2D and 3D processes with particular focus on line, shape, and color. And these tend to be quite intuitive. And the results end up being sort of reductions and abstractions of the source object. So these are a few works created sort of November of 2019. And so once I create a body of work and a collection of works, I then tend to use methods of assemblage to interpret and reimagine and sort of re-articulate the relationships with these objects and the new parts created. And so around the time that Hospital Rooms got in contact, I was working on this exhibition. So this is Encounter, which opened about this time last year at Wising Arts Centre. And so what I wanted to do with this show was build on the processes of restaging that I'd already established and create more of an immersive space. It was based on a series of 3 objects and repurposed collaging techniques for a 3D environment. The structure of the space was slightly altered with additional walls that had been created from drawings of these objects. And then there was also a mural that covered the walls and also the floor. Within this were sculptural and photographic elements, as well as video and lighting interventions. And what I found particularly interesting about this work was the impact it had on the viewer, the atmosphere it created, and the sort of feelings and senses of sort of calm and increased curiosity, a slowing down and a desire to spend time with the work. So it felt much more like an experiential work compared to previous works that I'd created. So through this exhibition and in the past year, I've been particularly interested in ideas of space in a sort of relational manner. While I have been interested in this before in terms of sort of curation and placement, I became more so during this last year, considering methods of scenography and the role that it plays in a theatrical sense, but also in an everyday context. So how we are able to orient ourselves in relation to what is around us in the spaces and objects and also people, a little bit how Richard was touching on earlier. And how our attention is drawn to certain things and how we might then move through space as a result of those interactions with the body as a central connector. So these are the sorts of things I was quite interested to bring to this project. The potential for the environment to be created through assemblage elements, thinking about the use and movement through space in the unit, how the spaces in the unit was sort of used and engaged with. I've recently started reading a book by Anna Cooper Albright. Her background is dance and movement. The book, How to Land, Finding Ground in an Unstable World. She talks about falling in all senses of the word and disorientation, and the way we might combat that through creating and reinforcing a sense of grounding. And that feels particularly poignant right now where we are globally, but also sort of felt like it had connections to the service users and Northside House, and thought, you know, there were particularly interesting moments within that book. She uses movement activities as a way of counteracting some of the behaviours that are installed in us at the moment in terms of disorientation. But I thought I'd mention an example that she spoke about. So reconnecting with our peripheral vision and awareness of, and noticing what is happening on the edges of our experience, in broadening our perception and drawing attention to, or focusing our attention away from our central focus, creates a fuller and more dynamic presence within a space. So I thought that was quite interesting. Moving forwards, that creates a more embodied experience, I would think. So these are some of the things I wanted to bring to the project. The possibility to consider the space as a way of counteracting maybe a feeling of being off balance, perhaps. So yeah, those are sort of elements I'd like to sort of bring to this project, with ideas of sort of stability, creating a sense of grounding and balance, reframing the space, and creating sort of anchoring points. So I managed to visit Northside House in December, and so the workshop that I created and worked through with the service users and the staff was a 3D environment sort of building workshop with simple processes of paper and folding mechanisms. So I wanted to use quite a simple process that allowed us to explore how slight interventions can transform something 2D into something sculptural and architectural. And it was really great to see that there was I didn't need to have too much of an input. They had a lot of ideas, and the creativity was just sort of flowing without too many sort of interventions or guidance. And so there was a real variety of outcomes, a mixture of responses, working on representational constructions based on hobbies or interests or spaces they had strong connections to. So we had we had a boxing ring, there was a festival, there was also a playground, while at the same time there were some more intuitive responses, working and responding to the paper and the colours in a sort of abstract and ambiguous way, so the spaces they created. And so, yeah, these are a few more examples. We also managed to explore light and how that impacted the structure and cast shadows, and how that changed the interactions between the different elements. So that was a really interesting element as well that we were able to add in sort of at the end. Throughout this, it was really fantastic having conversations with the service users and understanding their experience within the unit, the spaces that they enjoyed being in, or how they felt moving through the space was for them as a service user. A lot of them also had a very creative background, like Carl mentioned earlier. A lot of them could, be studying at art school. They have a lot of creativity going on. And what I noticed was there was also a lot of energy and playfulness. And so I really want to bring that to the commission. So like I mentioned, I got to visit Northside House in December. So along with the workshop, we also got a tour of the units, and that was really informative. I was most interested in some of the sort of social spaces. particularly the TV room, but then also sort of transitional spaces like the corridors. So this is a draft of the mural element of my proposal. And so this is a combination of shapes extracted from the constructions made during the workshop. And so what I'd really like to do is create a space that has that playfulness and energy that was in those constructions, but also has some kind of feeling of grounding, a grounding element to it. So this painting will wrap around the space across the ceiling as well. And then amongst this, I would like to create some sort of relief in the sense of layers. So within this setup, there will be shaped wooden painted shapes attached to the walls as well, across the ceiling and on the walls, as a way of just altering that space a little bit, so it also engages with the sort of physicality of the sort of architecture of the space. And then within that will be simple line drawings based on some of the shapes and structures found within that workshop. So it will be quite a sort of a mixture and layered artwork, but hopefully sort of brings across that playfulness and energy that I could see sort of in the work of the service users, but also provides that opportunity to sit and feel a response to the space that they're in. So there's a few drawing elements here, and then some photographic things I've been playing with recently, using the photographs from the workshop. So it's really exciting to sort of be able to put together a design based on a lived space. So this has been a really fantastic sort of opportunity to play with how to best create something that will be used on a regular basis. Yes, so that's me. Thank you very much for listening.